Researcher notes. Recently, I heard some stories about failures in the Matrix and realized that it seems that I too have encountered a similar phenomenon. Before New Year's Eve in St. Petersburg, they started decorating Palace Square with a huge live fir tree decorated with brightly colored toys. I often heard talk about it and dreamed of finding time to get out to the city center and see this beauty with my own eyes. One day, on my way to the dentist, I took the opportunity and decided to drive past Palace Square. At first, I looked at it from the street, but didn't see anything. Then I peeked through the archway, hoping to see the Christmas tree from there, but it wasn't there either. Finally, driving onto Nevsky Prospect, I found myself right in front of the square, which was visible as in the palm of my hand. But despite all expectations, the Christmas tree was not there. The next morning, I shared with my friends that I couldn't admire the tree on Dvortsovaya. Everyone was surprised and assured me that the tree was still standing in its place. When I drove past the square, it was quiet, and there were few people standing near the Alexander Column. Perhaps at that moment I had somehow traveled from one dimension to another. This incident happened after the New Year 2022. This is an interesting thing that happened to me recently. Every day I prepare my pet's food, and I usually add a raw egg to it. I always choose medium-sized brown eggs for my dog, but for my family, I prefer to buy large white eggs. Everything went as it should, and in the morning I prepared my dog's usual lunch, adding a fresh brown egg to it. Everything went fine, there were no problems. However, in the evening, when I got ready to make dinner for my Doberman again, something strange came to light. I wanted to add an egg, but there were no eggs on the shelf where I always kept my dog's food. I searched the kitchen thoroughly, checking every possible place, but the brown eggs were nowhere to be found. I was confused, because I knew for sure that's where they were supposed to be. Then I turned my attention to the basket of eggs for the family. Usually there were 2 large white eggs, but suddenly there was a whole batch of fresh eggs in the basket. And they were of a size I'd never seen before. I remembered I was going to put buying eggs on my grocery list because I was running low on supplies. Now the basket was full and I couldn't figure out where the new eggs had come from. To make sure I wasn't crazy, I checked the trash can, hoping to find a shell or carton from the same brown eggs I'd fed the dog that morning. But I found nothing. It completely threw me off my game. After all, I am the only one doing the cooking and shopping in the house, so no one else could have taken those eggs. Talking to the housemates, I got only perplexed looks and joking remarks. None of them would touch the dog's food, since our pet has its own food shelf. And why would they steal eggs meant for the dog? This incident left me completely confused. I ended up having to go to the store again to get new eggs for the dog, but the family now has a full supply of fresh eggs. It made me wonder if I had witnessed some strange glitch in the Matrix. In my lifetime, there have been 2 strange incidents involving the sudden disappearance of people. One of these incidents happened when my husband and I were walking down the street. We noticed an old man crossing the road right in front of us. He reached the middle of the road and suddenly disappeared. He just vanished into thin air, as if he didn't exist. We stood there at a loss, trying to make sense of what we'd seen. Where could he have gone? We both saw it, but we couldn't explain what had happened. The second incident occurred when I was helping an elderly woman cross the street. She thanked me and went on her way. I continued on my way, but after a moment I turned around to look at her. And what did I see? Grandma was gone. Not at all. She couldn't have walked far in such a short second, especially considering there was a tall construction fence and a deserted street all around. Where could she have gone so quickly? This incident made me even more puzzled. Many years ago, when I met my former classmate by chance, he shared with me one amazing story that happened to him. When he was young, he enrolled in a military school, dreaming of becoming a military officer. From the very beginning of his studies, he started having the same dream, repeating every night, from Thursday to Friday. In the dream, he was holding some kind of apparatus that gave off bright sparks, and they hurt his eyes. Then he saw an anvil and himself forging hot metal, turning it into beautiful fruit, apples, pears, and other fruits, which he carefully arranged on an exquisitely forged dish. Lesha admitted that he did not understand the meaning of these dreams because he was far from blacksmithing. Nevertheless, the dreams continued to haunt him until he graduated from college. If I remember correctly, he studied at the Airborne Troop School. After graduation, he was sent to serve in Afghanistan. There, in one of the local settlements, he found himself in a real forge, where he met an old master blacksmith. His grandfather showed him his craft and explained something to him, speaking in pure Russian, which greatly impressed Leshu. After the visit to the forge, a firefight broke out, and Lesha had to return to his duties. Later, when he returned to the place where the forge was located, he saw a huge crater, testifying to a long-past explosion. It was at this point that he was hit and lost consciousness. When he woke up, he realized that he had been evacuated by helicopter, and then before his mental gaze appeared the image of the same grandfather, who said to him, not verbatim, "The forge is waiting for you," and gave him the address. After the wounding, Leshu was demobilized, and he went to a neighboring town to get documents. Remembering the address given to him, he decided to check whether there was a forge there. Indeed, there was an old blacksmith shop at the given address, and an elderly master worked there. The blacksmith told Lyosha that there was no one to pass on his craft and house to, and offered him a place to stay. Lyosha, recently divorced and without children. Now Lyosha is a successful entrepreneur who has expanded his blacksmith shop and trains apprentices. He creates unique metal products, got married, renovated his house, raised 2 children, and moved his parents in with him. His life has turned out quite well. I had several times when I should have died, but angels saved. Here is one of these stories. I finished shift at 11 p.m., sat on the bike and blessedly went home. On the handlebars hanging heavy metal, cord, and note. He never fell off the handlebars, even when I was rushing on the bumps, and here on a flat road, he jumps up, goes through my hand and falls to the ground. I have a brain failure. How is this possible? Simultaneously braking, turn around to pick it up. Sorry to lose it. I need it to buckle at the stores. That would not bike stolen. I picked it up, hung it back on the handlebars, and went on my way again. All this took 2003 min. I drive out on the main road and right in front of me the car crashes into a huge car. If I had not been detained with this cord, I would have been between these cars. The second story from childhood. I'm a little 6 years old walking alone in snowy Kazakhstan at my grandmother's house, and I check puddles on the strength of ice. I found a huge puddle covered with ice, and I start tapping my feet on the ice breaks, and I fall into this hole. In my memory, there is only that I go underwater and see the sun less and less and all. I woke up at my grandmother's bed. There are boots next to me. My coat is hanging on a chair and all my clothes are dry. But it's obvious that they were in the water. Nobody says anything to me. They don't scold me. If people had saved me, an article in the newspaper is guaranteed. Such events were always voiced, and my grandmother would have beaten me up and told but there is silence. Well, and I am silent. All my life for me, a mystery WHO saved me. When I went underwater, there was no one around. So thank you, angels, that always keep us. The other day I was at a birthday party for my mom, who turned 79. At the table we were talking about health and my mom showed me a little spring that you put on your fingers for massage. I was shocked. When I looked at her hands, I saw that they had completely changed. Before, her joints were badly deformed. Her hands looked tired and swollen. I still have that picture in front of me, but now her hands looked completely healthy and normal. I immediately told my mom that I couldn't believe my eyes because her hands had always been so mangled. But Mom replied that she had never had hands like the ones I was describing. This moment left me confused. Perhaps it had to do with the deterioration of my eyesight? Or have I simply forgotten what her hands used to be like? I plan to visit her again and scrutinize her hands to get to the bottom of this issue. Especially after I started having problems with my joints myself, they started to ache and swell. And now, looking at my mom's hands, I wonder how this could have happened. Easter came, and as usual, I started preparing for the holiday. One of the important steps was to boil the eggs so that I could paint them. I tried to take into account all the recommendations to avoid cracks on the shell. But to my dismay, when I checked the eggs after boiling, it turned out that almost a third of the 30 pieces had serious damage. Some of them were even cracked in half. I was disappointed, but decided to see the process through and continue cooking despite the cracks. When the time was up, I took the pot off the heat and started to take the eggs out, and then I could hardly believe my eyes. All the eggs were intact! How was that possible? I couldn't understand what had happened. It seemed like a miracle. To this day, I tell this story with pleasure to everyone I know, and every time I relive the surprise of what happened. What was it? It may have been a coincidence, but in my heart I feel that it was a sign from above. An amazing story happened to me while I was at work. It was lunchtime, and I decided to go to the store to buy something to eat. I had to walk through a vacant lot, and there was no one in the way. Suddenly, a woman dressed as a nun appeared in front of me. She addressed me with a request.
Eat.
I want to eat. I did not hesitate to give her all the money I had taken with me for lunch, saying, "Here, take this, buy some bread." The woman took the money and walked away from me. I turned to see where she was going, but she was gone. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. It all happened so slowly and quietly that I didn't even have time to realize what was happening. The best part came a little later. When I returned to work, I found that my colleagues had invited me to the table and offered to share lunch with them. This story took place in 1977, when I was a teenager and my younger brother was about 10 years old. We lived in the village, and one day a woman we knew came to visit our mother with her little daughter, who was only 5 years old. My brother and I went out to play in the yard and soon found ourselves next to a barn. There was a massive cast iron speaker leaning against the wall of the barn, the kind used to supply water. Suddenly, the column began to move away from the wall and fell directly on the little girl. My younger brother reacted instantly, rushing forward to hold the speaker and protect the child. I watched as if in slow motion as the speaker slowly pulled away from the wall and headed straight for my brother's neck. I ran up and pushed the speaker aside. Strangely, I didn't feel its weight, though later, when I tried to lift it, I realized it wasn't easy. Then I couldn't understand what had happened. In theory, my brother should have suffered a serious neck injury, if not death. He was an amazingly handsome and kind boy, a rare man by nature. However, fate ordered otherwise. He died at the age of 36 from a blood clot. But he saved a child that day. I have never had such a moment of slow time happen to me again.